Getting a group of really brilliant people to work together perfectly is, well, it's tough. It's a huge challenge, even for us humans. But in the world of AI, it's basically the next great frontier. So let's dive into a really fascinating new method that teaches AI agents how to team up, making them not just smarter, but way more effective. Okay, imagine you assemble an absolute dream team of specialists. You've got a coder, a researcher, a brilliant critic, the works. You'd expect incredible results, right? But what if, instead of this beautiful symphony, you just got noise? Well, that's the core problem we're seeing in AI development right now. You can have these highly specialized AI agents, but if you don't have the right coordination, they just end up being chaotic, redundant, and honestly, surprisingly unproductive.
So, who are these AI geniuses? Well, on our team, we've got the coder, who can write and run pretty complex programs. Then there's the critic. Its entire job is just to poke holes in logic and find errors. We've also got the researcher, who's constantly out there scanning the web for new info. The planner breaks down these huge problems into smaller, manageable steps. And finally, the summarizer, who takes all that complexity and boils it down to the key points. Each one on its own is an absolute powerhouse.
But when you throw them all in a room together, most systems today end up looking something like this. It's just chaos. They're stuck following these rigid, predefined workflows that can't adapt, and this leads to what researchers call coordination overhead, which is really just a fancy way of saying a lot of wasted time and energy. It's kind of like a super talented band where everyone's playing a completely different song. The potential is there, but the performance just isn't. But this is where our story takes a really interesting turn. To solve this whole AI team chaos problem, researchers developed a brand new framework, and they gave it a fantastic name, the Puppeteer. And believe me, it's a totally new way of thinking about AI collaboration. So what is it? Well, the Puppeteer is basically a central AI orchestrator. Think of it as the master conductor for our team of geniuses. It's not one of the specialists. Its only job is to direct the others. It looks at the problem, and in real time, it decides which agent, or puppet, is the perfect one for the very next step. And this isn't some fixed plan. It's a living, breathing strategy that adapts on the fly.
The puppeteer's method really comes down to two key superpowers. First up is dynamic orchestration. It's not just following a script, it's constantly looking at the task and picking the perfect agent for that exact moment. Second, and this is the game changer, is adaptive evolution. The puppeteer actually learns from experience. It uses a technique called reinforcement learning, which is kind of like training a puppy with treats, to get feedback on every single task. It figures out what strategies work and which ones are dead ends. So over time, it actually evolves, getting smarter and way more efficient with every problem it solves. Now, that all sounds great in theory, but does it actually work? Let's get to the results, because this is where things get really exciting. All right, let's look at the hard data. This chart here shows performance on a really complex software development benchmark. See the bar on the left? That's the performance of the old methods. Now look at the bar on the right. That's the Puppeteer. The difference is pretty stark, right? The Puppeteer method doesn't just do a little bit better, it significantly outperforms the baseline. It's a clear leap forward. Okay, so it's more effective. It gets better results. But there's usually a catch, isn't there? More power often means you need more resources, more computing time, more money. So the crucial question is, what's the price for all this superior performance? And this is the most surprising part of this entire story. The performance gains don't come at a higher cost. Actually, it's the complete opposite. This trend line, taken right from the research, shows something pretty remarkable. The amount of computational resources it needs, which we measure in tokens, you can think of that as the basic currency for AI, it consistently goes down over time. So let's just let that sink in. The key takeaway here is this. The Puppeteer method gets you both higher performance and lower cost. That is a rare win-win that could totally change how we build and use these complex AI systems. So how is that even possible? How does an AI team learn to get both better and cheaper at the same time? Let's peel back the layers here and look at the real secret behind the Puppeteer's success. This visual just illustrates the whole process perfectly. On the left, you've got the before picture, the system in its initial state. The agents are working in these simple, kind of clumsy chains. It's exploratory, a bit inefficient. But then look at the right. That's the after. The structure has totally transformed into this dense, interconnected web.
The team has literally learned how to collaborate, creating these complex and efficient workflows. And this amazing transformation is driven by two key ideas. So, the first phenomenon is called compaction. As the puppeteer learns, the communication between the agents gets tighter and much more focused. Instead of these long, rambling conversations, they start to form these dense little clusters around the most important parts of the problem. The team just stops wasting time on unnecessary steps and evolves from a scatter group into a super focused, synergistic unit. This is a huge reason why it gets cheaper to run over time. It learns to cut out all the noise.
The second, and equally important idea, is cyclicality. The team actually learns to create its own feedback loops. So one agent will do some work, pass it to the critic, who then sends it back for revision. This allows for this incredible process of constant critique and refinement. It's basically the AI version of a really productive human brainstorming session, where ideas are constantly being challenged, revisited, and improved. And that is what leads to that higher performance we saw earlier.
So let's zoom out a bit. This isn't just some clever piece of engineering. The Puppeteer framework is really hinting at the future of not just AI, but of how we solve complex problems in general. So what are the big ideas you should take away from all this? First, the future of AI isn't just about smarter individuals. It's about smarter teams built on dynamic coordination. Second, we now know it's actually possible to design AI that gets cheaper as it gets smarter. Third, this signals a major shift from building one giant AI brain to conducting an orchestra of specialists. And finally, this is how we're going to build AI teams that are truly more than the sum of their parts. Which leaves us with one last, really fascinating question. For years, we've been focused on making individual AIs more powerful, but now we're learning how to make them into true collaborators. So if we can teach them to team up this effectively to write software, what other monumental challenges in science, in medicine, and engineering can they solve next?